Oh, Suzanne. No.
So hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody joining us from Cincinnati, Berlin, and probably elsewhere. It's really great to see all of you and welcome to Digital Disconnect, the Art of Social Distance. My name is Svea Breunert. I teach film and media studies at the University of Cincinnati. And what you will see today is the result of Film 2001 Exploring Screen Media, a class in the undergraduate curriculum here at the University of Cincinnati. And the point of the class is really to allow students to get acquainted with media theory of the 20th and 21st century through creative explorations. And this is also what this exhibition is about. However, as you're all very aware, this was a very unusual semester with a lot of challenges. And so we really try to look at the contemporary moment and make this part of our explorations into media studies and media applications. And the exhibition, Digital Disconnect, the Art of Social Distance, is the outcome of these explorations. I want to especially thank Brenda Lemboy, who taught this class together with me, and the NIOF Center for Film and Media Studies that has generously supported the exhibition. So thank you very, very much for this. And one last organizational remark. We are recording the session for essentially archival purposes, but if you do not want to be on camera, please feel free to turn off your camera or log out, although we would love to have you. So, but it is a choice, right? So I wanted to let you know that. And so without further ado, I give it over to Brenda, who also would like to say a few words of welcome.
Yeah, so as Svea said, my name is Brenda Lamboy. I'm a PhD student or candidate here at UC and the TA for this lovely class. And I really wanted to say how proud I am of all of the students and what they did during the semester. It really is just amazing. So I'm really excited to see the final exhibition along with you guys. And with that, I'll hand it over to Devin to start the tour.
All right. Hello, everybody. Good morning. So everybody, we are now entering our visual exhibition. Just so you guys know, it is mask optional. We would love to have you wear your mask, but it is not required. And if you all get sick, you can send your complaint straight to me. All right. Welcome to Digital Disconnect, the Art of Social Distancing. That is the name of our exhibition here. And without further ado, I think we should just get right on with the tour, shall we? Nick, if you would, please. Thank you. All right, so please do not adjust your screens. We are not having any quality issues right now. We are going to actually send it right over to Caitlin to explain why you're all being confused by this whole biometric mix-up.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Lefevre. This is my piece, Biometric Mix-Up. It focuses on how our devices perceive us. We use our phones, tablets, computers every day, but we don't really pay attention to how much information each one of those things collects from us. Our phones use facial recognition and fingerprint scanning, so they already have all of our biometrics on there like every single day. And all this information that our phone collects from us and our facial recognition and everything it forms what's called like our digital identity. And through that digital identity, our devices try and piece back together what they think we look like through all of the information, like our likes, our dislikes, our jobs, who we follow on like Instagram or whatever. And the digital identities don't always align with our actual identity. And this little discrepancy we have is what makes up our biometric mix-up. So that's what you're seeing here. It's never going to be exactly perfect, but it still gives you the general idea that it's still a person.
Thank you very much, everyone. Please give a silent round of applause for Caitlin. As we will then continue on to the tour, we have Mr. Jonah's Life During Corona with Davin Tackett. Oh, wait. He didn't come for this. Let me go grab him. Hey, everybody. All right, so what I did with this little fun little project here, I wanted to kind of explore the way that during this pandemic, we have kind of changed our lives to revolve around certain mediums. And what I tried to do is I tried to interact with these mediums in the way that we would interact with the old mediums. So you can kind of see a few of the examples here. And if you click on the individual pictures, you can actually kind of look at a little like witty little subtext thing. If you, Nick, if you want to click on, yeah, that one. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so, you know, I'm trying to use my computer there as sort of like a cash register there in that example, or I can see, you know, there's like a movie theater, charging up my car and kind of a bunch of little things. But I basically kind of wanted to explore the idea of how our lives have changed in between this whole pandemic situation. And I have to thank my mom for being the little photographer, because I had to play the part of Mr. Jonah. Who else would play such a part? Also have to thank her cat, because I use her at the end there. And I don't think I really have any other things to say. It's just kind of one of these things where you just kind of, if you really want to take a look around, just go into that link that Savea put into the chat there, and you can just click on an image and kind of read it. I kind of built it like a comic strip, so that way you kind of see one image and then the little gag. If anyone of you has ever read Family Circus, this will age me like at least 20 years past what I'm my actual age. But yeah, there you go. And now I will hand it back over to Davin. Thank you, Davin. That was very riveting. Let's move on. To a bunch of people that interact with a little photography little box much better than I can. We're going from seeing a bunch of images to seeing a bunch of images. Please welcome Casey with Selfie Expression.
Hi, I'm Casey. So for my project, I wanted to do something with selfies because there's something I use a lot, and then my friends. Selfies can be defined as pictures taken of oneself with a smartphone and then shared on the internet. For this project, I saved selfies sent on the social media platform Snapchat from 3 different people. I didn't give them any special directions. I just told them to send me the same things they normally would. I would just be screenshotting them. So after collecting the selfies, I displayed them in this grid, with each person given their own space. Selfies can be used for expression and communication. They are meant to feel live and differ in many ways from traditional portraits. This grid allows the viewer to see the ways different people use selfies as a tool for both communication and expression. They can quickly be compared and contrasted. You'll notice different tendencies of each person. The angles they use to take the selfies can vary. They can be incredibly similar or really different. And the same can be said for facial expressions. Similar selfies taken by each person, for the most part, are displayed closely together. I think using this format, the viewer might be able to get a taste of each person's personality or maybe what they're trying to communicate. And finally, I also included a quote from each person on what they feel they use their selfies for. Thank you.
So clap for Casey. It's really hard to clap in these kind of environments. I've noticed it's like you really want to, and then there's just kind of just after everything goes, there's just a dead little pause. But let's just continue rolling, shall we? Please pardon our improper ventilation. We have a very cheap space on the internet because internet real estate's really cheap compared to real space. Next we have Adam Beery, which will be seen.
Hello, I'm Adam. So with my project, I planned on dissecting the structure of modern day media and what kind of news will float to the top in this society. So if you look at any sort of news site nowadays, whether it's the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, or even social media sites like Twitter and Instagram, you can see that they're all profit driven. And this means that they're trying to get as many clicks as possible. And you can do that in two ways. You can either get more people to look at your site, or you can put out more stories. And nowadays, it's pretty important for any news site to try and put out as many stories as they can, because it's very hard to keep your business afloat if you only put out a small amount of stories. For example, a news site that puts out 50 stories is going to have a lot more success than one that puts out 10, because we live in an information age where, despite the fact that you may not even look at 50 stories a day, you would at least want to know that you'd be in the loop if you did want to look at those. Now, since they have to put out so many stories, it's oftentimes that they can't all put out good stories, and they would love to put out 50 great stories, but you're going to quickly realize that it's a lot easier to put out a catchy title than a good story. And so I feel like the main ways that people put out a catchy title is they're either going to abuse who or what is popular, they're going to write for shock value, or they're going to fabricate stories to make it, to build a narrative that's too enticing to not click on. And what I feel like is, this is my visualization of the result of that. You have all these stories that are fighting over each other, trying to get to the forefront. They're trying to take as much space up as possible, lining it. And meanwhile, if you look, that you can actually see there are other stories, which I feel like are a lot more honest and to the truth and helpful for society, that are kind of getting pushed to the side and don't get as much recognition as they might deserve, just because they're not as catchy or as popular. And I also feel like it's important to look at whether or not this is the fault of the news outlets or the people who watch them, because you have to wonder, if the news outlets put out stories and the public only listen to good stories, would they only put out good, helpful stories? That's it.
Thank you very much, Adam. All right, we got to do a little bit of walking, so we're gonna take a little stroll to the back to our video rooms. Or no, wait a minute, I think we may have a couple other things. Okay, two more things, and then we'll go to the video rooms. I forgot the order. Oopsies. And all but one of my instructors are in here, so that's nerve-wracking. All right, next we have Will Morris with Hands.
Hi, my name is Will Morris, and as stated before, my project is called Hands. Basically, I feel like whenever people try to study modern media and digital media, we all are sort of like fascinated with how much, society has changed as a result of social media and digital media and all of that, and how but I think what's just as fascinating to me is also like the similarities that comes with those differences. I don't think a lot of people realize that the way we interact or behave with technology today has quite a few similarities with how we interacted with technology back then. So I try to demonstrate those differences and similarities with hands. And basically, what I would do is that I would use my hands to interact with older media. And then in separate pictures, I would use sort of like the same hand motions or same hand gestures onto newer technology. So, like with the first one, the first picture on the top left is a picture of me touching another person's hand. It's sort of a weird way of touching hands, but still, it sort of says like how, before social media and people had to solely interact based on touch and all that. And then now, because of social media, as you can see in the bottom left, it creates the conception is still there of interacting with people, but as you can see, the finger isn't actually touching the phone, so it sort of creates this illusion of interaction in a way. And then with the middle top picture, you can see someone slowly opening a book, and then on the bottom middle is someone opening a laptop. And I did this because in a way we sort of open a book, or we sort of open a laptop like we would open a book. We do it to sort of like, gain something, learn something. Not saying that that's all we do with laptops. That is certainly something that we can do. We can learn things and all that. And then the reason why, so then if you also look there, the laptop is also bigger. And that is because, we have such a wider amount of knowledge than we did before. And then in terms of contributing with society on the far right photos, if things were a lot more manual, a lot more physical, which is why I use the bricks, whereas now a lot of jobs are more technical, more digital, and not saying all jobs are digital now, but they're certainly becoming more common. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, Will. All righty. Next up. Now we're going to the video room. Okay. And if you can try to squint a little bit, we got a bunch of grids of a bunch of different classic movies and films and stuff. And we're going to hand it to Jeff to explain all what this means.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Jeff, and for my project, I've taken 4 genres, as you can see: action, animation, comedy, and horror. And these are genres that I personally feel like the most popular in terms of like, I guess, film nowadays. And what I've done is I've taken an image from a clip from each decade, starting from the 1930s, ending in the 2010s, and I've labeled them out in a way. And so essentially the whole purpose of this project here was to show like how film has developed over time in terms of technology, dialogue, acting, visuals, obviously. And I won't have time to go into it all, but within each image, there's a link to a clip, which is like a clip from the actual movie that the image represents. And yeah, essentially it just, shows how film has developed over time. And interesting things to look at that I found interesting is how movies have changed in terms of entertainment, like what people find intriguing, what people find interesting, what's their preferred cup of coffee, so to speak. Interesting things that I've noticed in particular in terms of how film has changed over time is usually when it comes to take action, for example. Many action films that started in the say 1930s to the 1950s, maybe 1960s, were typical swashbuckler films with people running around with swords, or Robin Hood, which is one example I use as someone who is like a cliched hero who comes in and saves the day and seems untouchable, and that seems to be I guess a cliche thing in a lot of action movies. But then as I guess time goes on, you know, a lot of like action films become related more to like martial arts, or they're spy movies like James Bond, and they have like a lot of car chases and gunfights and vice versa. But yeah, when you have the time for it, again, I won't be able to show all the clips, but you can really like look into all the clips that I've shared, and you can like see how film has developed over time. And I would say personally that the one I guess moment throughout film history that I feel like is like, you know, changing the most in terms of film in the United States, at least, is the 1960s, 1970s, because that was around the counterculture movement. So that's when films became like more explicit, and I guess filmmakers could put more content out there that would be considered like controversial in a lot of ways. But yeah, I guess that's the overall purpose of my project. And the films that I chose personally, I don't think that they're like the best films like for the decade that I chose. They're just films that I personally found very interesting, and I thought they would be nice to share. So yeah, I guess that's that.
Thank you very much. Give a hand for Jeffrey, silent hand, round of applause. And now we are going to our other video rooms. We're actually going to be watching some videos, even though I'm pretty sure with how the pandemic's worked, you've probably already all seen like 5 videos today anyway. So, but we're going to show you something a little different, something that adheres a little bit to the census. Here's Liam.
So I guess I'll start with the brainstorming behind this project. So basically, what I learned from Svea's class was most of all just the emphasis of our senses when it comes to different media. So that includes like film, TV, newspapers, whatever you can, I guess, can consider a medium. But with film, of course, it requires you to use your sense of sight and sense of hearing. And I thought, well, another piece of inspiration was the film A Quiet Place, where the main characters throughout the film don't really communicate verbally. They use sign language. So that kind of served as a piece of inspiration, and I decided to take the visuals out of this project and call it a blind film. So basically, I just went around Cincinnati and just recorded sounds. And what I was trying to go for is not just like a montage of sounds, but more of like an imaginative film for my viewers. So.
And I think we're going to watch a little bit of it, if I'm not mistaken, or?
Yeah, I hear the sound coming through, so hopefully you guys hear it.
This definitely sounds like Cincinnati to me.
Yeah.
There's definitely, yeah, you're definitely right. There are definitely some familiar sounds. All right. Thank you very much, Liam. That was awesome. Please forgive me for any little weird moments there. My internet decided this was the perfect time to just die on me. So I had to switch over to my phone real quick, but it was all nice and seamless. So hopefully didn't freak anybody out there. All right, we move on. And if you didn't see me on video for a while, that was me actually up on the stairs trying to reboot the router. Next up, we have another film.
Hi, yeah, my name's Lauren Dahl, and so my project is called Zoom Disconnecting Through Connection, and it is a short film about the ways in which the popular video chatting site Zoom that we're on now is impacting the way people communicate. So because of the recent pandemic, Zoom has skyrocketed in popularity, and both young and old make use of this site to talk to loved ones and share information with friends and perform business meetings without leaving the house. And with this ability to interact visually from miles apart, Zoom appears to be this groundbreaking device in the world of communication. But I have found that along with all these positive attributes, Zoom is also negatively affecting some of the ways in which we communicate. For example, many people suffer from technical complications that hinder their ability to hear or to see each other, often associated with the mute and video buttons. And there's no sense of touch or even direct eye contact and many other problems. So my film intends to bring these issues to light by following the Zoom meeting of a couple who during the pandemic can only meet each other online. As you can see here, this little loop takes place from the second scene of the film, and they're celebrating an anniversary. And the boy here, David, on the left, is having some technical difficulties sharing the background of his screen. And you'll find when you watch the film that what begins as comical, like technical complications, soon turn into repetitive annoyances that wear on the couple's relationship. Yeah.
All right. And I think we're gonna play. Are we gonna play a little bit of this?
You don't have to. You can
You
just
don't have to.
yeah,
You
watch
kind
the
of.
loop.
You kind of get a nice little loop here. Yeah.
But Devin, I think we have time. So if
Yeah.
Luke
I
has
think we have a.
we can see the minute and a half that we prepared.
Yeah, because we are kind of flying through here. So.
That's not the one I was trying to. Okay, there we go. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Okay, it's a beach. Little surprise. Wrong one. That's not the one I was trying to. Okay, there we go. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Okay, it's a beach. Little surprise. Wrong one. That's not the one I was trying to.
Just looking at that, I'm hungry now. It's reminding me that it is almost lunchtime. I think that's why we're trying to fly through, because everybody wants to eat. But we still got plenty of more to go through, so let's move on. Thank you very much, Lauren. I think we are going to.
Hi, so I'm Helen Curran, and my project is Animal Crossing Digital World. As I'm sure many of you have experienced, with COVID, life has been very strange, and like a lot of meeting and having in-person interactions has not been possible. Like I know for me personally, I have not, like a lot of plans have been canceled, and like for quarantine, and I definitely miss like my friends and my family. And one of the things that was really interesting to me was during the pandemic, Animal Crossing came out and the game blew up. And it became like celebrities. It was huge on like Instagram, YouTube, all kinds of social media. And it was very interesting seeing how people used this game as like a medium to interact. And it sort of acted as like its own social website, like an add-on to other social websites so that people could connect through. And so I wanted to explore the community experiences people had, like the creative like moments they've had with people and their interactions and the ideas they have. And so I basically went out searching for people, and I got a lot of content from like a lot of amazing people, like just very kind, and it was really eye-opening. And So some of the examples is a girl who streams on Twitch, and she forms like different games. Like she made a whole Jeopardy island, she made Pac-Man, she made different quiz shows, and she allows anyone to just come in and do it for free and have fun. There's a woman who, for her daughter, her daughter has not been able to see her best friend, and so she built like a little play area for her, like her daughter and their daughter's best friend, and they can just hang out whenever. They do like little nail like salon parties, they do dress up. It's very sweet, and you have people doing like pen pals, and just a lot of stuff has been happening. So I wanted to really showcase how creative people have been with this game. And there's a stigma, I feel like, about like digital relationships, that they're not really real or genuine, and I wanted to kind of showcase that they can be very real. And video games can be very useful, and like, aside from like what some people think of them. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much, Helen. Helen, Kieran, everybody. I don't play very much with these video games. I'm still stuck to solitaire. I'll have to pick that up later. Anyway, we move on before I have to go play a game of 52 pickup. The screen not moving. There we go. Alrighty. So even though it is, is Albert here still or no?
So I believe Albert isn't here, unfortunately, but I can say
Yeah.
a few words about his project, and then maybe Nick, you can show the link that Michael sent you last night.
The teacher presents the quiz, of course.
Yeah, so Albert actually is a walking archive of film knowledge, and also an actor. So he decided to actually perform quotes from movies, and then let his audience guess what the quote, like what film the quote comes from. And Michael Stevens, who's also a student in the class, filmed him. So this is how this came about. And as we walk through the exhibition, you might have seen that I post the links to the full films in the project, in the chat. So please check them out later, because they're really worthwhile to watch. So.
Alrighty. Do we want to try to show? I don't know if we want to try to show one of the things, or we think we have enough time. We can do one or two.
Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me.
Alrighty. I love the fact that we were doing this special exhibition and we have to end up taking a quiz. But we move on.
Okay, hello. My name is Nick Clark. I've been the one controlling this little thing that you're watching right now. And this is my project, a catalog of social distancing behaviors. This is basically a project where I went around the city of Cincinnati in various places to capture some of the life of kind of social distancing and how people have been affected by this. So what I did is I went around, took these pictures, and then went in and digitally kind of enhanced them in a way to kind of show the separation between all these humans. And I even overlaid masks on to kind of show the times and how it's affected people just with not being able to see their faces. So through this kind of series, I've kind of learned how it's changed people, but also well, it's changed people in the sense that it's brought people kind of further away, but it's also brought people closer. I think the main people that get closer are family, and the main people that get further away are strangers. So basically, it was just me a project of just kind of learning how people interact with the environment in a socially distanced way. And I think it turned out really well, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Just what we needed, another reminder that we are all far apart from each other. And speaking of which, I do want to remind everybody that while we are on this exhibition, please keep a 6-foot distance. Just kidding. Let's continue on. We got next, I believe it is. Oh, glitch, like my screen's doing right now. Hannah, we'll turn it over to you.
Hi, my name is Hannah. So I really wanted to photograph things that weren't working, and I have these looping videos to kind of showcase that. I put them all at different speeds just so that each one would draw your eye at a different time. We learned a lot in this class about different mediums and how to present information, and things can go horribly wrong when you do things with technology, but not only new technology, but old technology, such as the things that are pictured. So I have a flat tire, which is pretty straightforward. And I found all these things while I was walking. And there were a lot of things that are not working the way that they were intended to. So I just kind of wanted to showcase items that were so integrated into our lives that we use them every day. And when they're not working, they kind of take away from their purpose, and they cause us to have to come up with creative solutions for them. Like the broken fence in the bottom left corner, you can see somebody tied it so that it wouldn't fall over. Or we just have to find a way around using them. So yeah, that's glitch.
Thank you, Hannah. Seeing that fence and that car kind of reminds me of my car window right now, which is completely taped up. But we won't talk about that. We'll talk about the next project. I'm not going to just hurt anybody with the broken window, okay? Don't worry. All right. Next up, we have Michael Stevens, the one who really is kind of like the big creative mind in trying to get this whole space put together, along with a bunch of other people. But he really helped to get it together. So thank you, Michael, for that. I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. This project accumulates research related to the pervasiveness of social media as the dominant mode of internet engagement. We shifted not long ago from an age of utilization in the era of the search engine to a time of simulation. My argument contends the use of social media as a practice in simulation and currently changes our behaviors and concepts of reality. I use the media theories of the late 20th century and early 21st as a framework for the potential of viewing social media as a new era in the age of technology. This is an era wherein reality has become destabilized by the rapidity of progress and the onslaught of virtuality. These theories postulate that advances in technology would lead to the destabilizing of our concepts of linear reality. One can think of, right now in Cincinnati, Google Maps and being led down a bridge that appears to be open, but isn't because it was burning. It is important to see how social media is inherently a system formulated within the concept of free expression. Yet these experiences, sometimes don't reflect our real world behaviors. It is a simulation of something else, a performance or a facade. The data we generate is used to commodify us and predict or shape how we interact in future experiences. This is our entry into a new reality, when experience isn't necessarily reality, or reality is no longer singularly substantiated. Thanks.
All right, and I think we're going to have a little bit of a clip of this.
It's just a brief loop.
Brief loop?
Oh, yeah, the clip, okay.
Spectacle, or internet, represents itself simultaneously as all of society, as part of society, and as instrument of unification. As a part of society, it is specifically the sector which concentrates all gazing and all consciousness, due to the very fact that this sector is separate. It is the common ground of the deceived gaze and of false consciousness, and the unification achieves is nothing but an official language of generalized separation. In the dislocated age of instant feedback, simulation, reputation management, and the ubiquity of surveillance, who determines what is real? Neologisms like fake news, Zoom fatigue, data drainers, and corona news exemplify the overlapping realities of the day. Reality has never been so quantifiable, definable, and relatable, but at the same time so peripheral. The biggest question of the era of social media may not be what is real, but what is real for oneself, as experience and reality no longer necessitate the other.
Thank you very much, Michael. Michael, everybody. All righty, let's continue on. Must be my screen's very slow. There we go.
Hi, everyone.
Oh.
My name is Luke Cottingham, and my piece is called The Unintended Anesthetic. So the point of my piece was to try and show, with the thousands and trillions of bits of data being transmitted every day, with events and tragedies becoming more and more common, the effects of those tragedies becomes less and less on the self. I feel that a brick wall has to be built up within the inner mind whenever seeing these tragedies as they become more and more common. The shock value that they once had is almost completely dissipated, from seeing these forest fires to corona cases to even things happening outside of our own country. Those kinds of impacts that they have on families today, sitting watching some form of medium, whether you're watching the news on your phone, whether you're watching the news at home, whether you're on any social media platform, these effects that they once had are no longer there. They create a numbness in oneself that we can no longer feel. The piece creates to show that numbness. The grayscale imagery here is supposed to represent that of the drained life that we see from ourselves. We no longer have that longing for those who may feel from these situations, and instead feel empty inside when seeing these tragedies. I remember one of the greatest pieces from this was seeing the effects of Hurricane Sandy when I was a little kid. I couldn't believe such a disaster, and I even saw my mom curled up and crying. Now, 2 years ago, we had an effect of similar similar destruction, but there was no effect at all. I didn't see anyone on the news crying. I saw these homes destroyed, but I didn't feel anything. These effects that we have due to the mass influx of media just drain away from what we truly are.
Thank you, Luke, everybody. We are flying. I think we have one more presentation to go through, and that would be Abby's, who's giving our daily reminder to wear a mask, please. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Abby, and my project, I decided on my project Behind the Mask based off of what we learned in one of our lectures titled The Face and the Faceless. We discussed the effects of different masks that people wear and not just the ones that we're wearing in the contemporary moment. I think that people are constantly wearing masks or shields to protect themselves emotionally. So this series that I shot highlights the emotions we hide behind physical and emotional masks in social situations. I wanted people to feel a sense of relation and mutual understanding to how all of us have felt at one time or another over these past few months or during quarantine. And in the pictures, I tried to convey how even when surrounded by friends, we can still feel emotions that are normally felt when you're in isolation. The masks in each picture act as a shield of self-representation, allowing each wearer of the masks to fit into the social situation. And the friends in the photos can only see what is on the surface and not what's hidden below the surface or below the mask. I have 5 separate pictures in the series, and each one is of a different social situation. The black and white individual that is the central focus of each photo wears a clear mask, and underneath it is a word written across the wearer's face. The words featured are ignored, alone, anxious, forgotten, and disconnected. And all of the emotions are trying to convey how it feels to try and live during the contemporary moment. That's it.
All righty. Thank you very much, Abby. And I believe that is the final one. That is our final exhibit. So yes, that was Digital Disconnect. Now I think we've rehearsed this in other of course I don't know if I did it in this one, but everybody all at one moment, if you all want to unmute and just give a one round of applause to everybody for doing this project on 3. 1, 2, 3. If you're wanting any refreshments, you need to go down to your kitchen sink and go get those yourself. But in the meantime, we have time for questions. So I think we have enough people to where if anybody just wants to kind of just unmute themselves and just have a question for anybody, please feel free to do so.
I have a question for Adam, if that's okay.
Sure.
If Adam's still with us. As a journalism professor, I took some notes on yours because it dealt with the news, and you raised a question at the end about who's kind of responsible for what we pay attention to. Is it the fault of journalists or is it the fault of the audience? And this is a question I've been dealing with myself lately, and so I was hoping you might maybe just talk about that a little bit more. Thank you.
Yeah, because journalists at the end of the day are going to put out what people read. And if people only read stories about how they could help the community or important news that they should be aware of, then I think journalists and news sites would only write about those things. So in a sense, I think it's both, because at a certain point, the news outlets have to be able to say, all right, we're only going to release what we want to release. We're going to release what we think is good news. But also an audience has a lot of power in the sense to say that we don't want this. We're not going to read something that's clearly fabricated or something that is just mindless nonsense. If that helps.
Any other questions? No.
I mean, I'm happy to ask a question, actually 2 questions that are pretty general.
Sure.
So, they're addressed to more than one of you, and I do have more specific question to every one of you, but I think we can talk about this at a later point. So the one is, would you have done something different if we actually had realized this exhibition in the physical space of the Carter Center at UC? So in what way did you have to change the form of your presentation to fit the digital environment that we're in? That would be the first question. And the second one regards humor. So how important was humor for your presentation as, I guess, a way of relief, but also maybe as making a critical comment in an idiom that we don't always associate with criticality, but that might actually readily be linked to it. So whoever wants to answer, which I know is never a good thing on Zoom because then no one wants to answer, but I think,
No.
I mean, Devin, clearly your project, has a great sense of humor.
Yeah, I mean, what was it not going to have a good sense of humor? I think that's a greater question to answer. So, no, I mean, I definitely am just kind of that kind of person that just always will just say, even in kind of a bad situation, yeah, for maybe like a couple hours, I'll probably be in a down mood, but as soon as the thing, I will just make fun of the situation as much as possible, because I think it's more important that, we keep a positive outlook. on things. Like this is not a permanent, situation. So that's kind of why I just wanted to inject a little humor into this, because I figured, especially since a lot of the other people's projects are going to tend to lean more towards the serious side of things. So I figured, why not be a little contrarian?
And I mean, the other project where I had to laugh several times actually is Lauren's film. So, I mean, I know it's also tragic because the couple breaks up in the end, right? But I mean, there are a lot of funny moments in this. So I don't know, Lauren, if you also want to comment.
I mean, yeah, I think that's the whole point too of my film, is that there's positive and negative effects that we experience on Zoom. So you're definitely going to have your like funny issues when people talk over one another and stuff like that, but it can also turn into negative things as well, I guess. But yeah.
I always I wanted to see a little more because I feel like it kept looping. Can we see a little more of her video, if that's okay?
Yeah, definitely.
Babe? David, are you there? Babe. Oh. David, I think your mic's muted, babe. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi. Okay.
Are you on?
Yeah. I was trying to figure out how to get it onto my laptop, actually.
Oh.
But I was having trouble with that, so I tried getting on my phone. So I think maybe. I think I just sent in a thing.
Okay. There we go.
Okay. Now I'm in here twice. Wow. I'll leave my phone. Hold on.
Okay.
I can't wait to see actually the rest of that. I really want to see the rest of that now. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to see a lot of the video things that I would have liked. I took a little more of the photo thing. I was just kind of scouring through. But we do have a question here in the chat from Lindsay, particularly addressed to Nick. So Nick, if you want to go over to your thing on the presentation. She said she found her thing very interesting because her colleagues are teaching in person. Have lamented that the experience with distance and masks is just as mediated as teaching online. This assumes mediation to be negative, and many of your images present positives of distance. So she wants you to see if you can, how you put together these images.
Okay, I'm sorry. What was the question again?
So she was wanting, she liked the fact that everyone is kind of putting the social distancing in kind of a negative aspect, and your pictures kind of put it in more of a positive light. So she was wondering how you kind of got the images, put all the images together, and she said also maybe if you could share some of your own experience of distance and mediation in this course as well.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, may I just briefly add, because the image that Lindsay Purcell was particularly interested in is the one to the far left that shows.
Oh, yes. Excuse me.
So I think it's on the one hand a question specifically about Nick's work and what he noticed photographing these situations and kind of the particularity of the classroom situation. But then it's also a question to all of you, which is, what was your experience taking this class online, or maybe also other classes online? And I know we talked a lot about this, so I would hope some of you have some ideas and insights to share.
Yeah, so I figured that, definitely not these interactions aren't necessarily inherently bad. I think that they're different. So, for example, the classroom one, so this was for a class that I took called TV genres this semester, and the professor actually like requested a larger lecture room, so we didn't have to be in a smaller room. And it kind of made this weird dynamic where everyone was very, very spread out throughout this entire like large lecture room, and the professor kind of had to like talk over or talk basically through the entire classroom. But it definitely made it for like this sort of weird hybrid of like this intimate like smaller classroom, but this larger kind of lecture room. I definitely think that so for this digital media class, we did this in a sort of a smaller room, and that was a very different experience than this experience where everyone had their own table, and it was like the room size was like, I don't know how many people were in our classroom, but there was not like a bunch of like less empty space or anything. So it's definitely kind of like I had like the two like opposite ends of this experience for my classrooms. As far as going and taking all these other pictures, I just kind of wanted to like look for different places where I could see these different interactions. So I figured, well, so like a bus stop, for example, people are already kind of distancing themselves at a bus stop. But this is like the extreme of that. They'll distance themselves even more to the point where like they're not even like they couldn't even like really even talk to each other if they tried. This grocery store, and I'm sure if you've all been to grocery stores, you know that there's like that thing on the floor where it says "stand here for the line," and that's definitely like kind of like the big point is to kind of keep everyone sort of separated, but allow for people to kind of pass through like the row. So it kind of helps in that sense. But yeah, I thought it was very interesting, and kind of this whole social distancing experience has definitely been different. And I feel like moving on past this, I think it'll definitely kind of maybe change some things that maybe we inherently maybe we took for granted. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so I just, before we go on to the question, I just wanted to comment that some of us took we had a thing for a couple of weeks where some of us took the class in person and some of us continued to do online. I continued to do online. And I just want to say one of the things that I've experienced throughout this pandemic is I've been, in video chats and stuff like that for years and stuff like that. So I had the experience of how to maneuver things, like how to mute, how to share screens and stuff like that. Maybe taking a few little extra seconds to try to figure out where everything was in each specific thing. But I've definitely noticed it was kind of always the problem, at least at first, like people didn't understand, who hadn't been in a lot of these video calls, didn't have a bunch of stuff. And so I would just kind of wait around and just do things like this during the class, like just mime with the screen and stuff like that. So just kind of, kind of a fun thing. But I think everyone's kind of getting the hang of it now. Tanja, I'm so sorry I wasn't able to see you raising your hand because I'm mostly seeing Nick's screen, so I can't really see if you raise your hand. But I will go ahead with you, and then we will go on move on to Anna after that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for a wonderful exhibition. I think it's the third one I've seen now. And I'm really interested in the differences between the ones that have been in the Carter Center and the one that is online. And going back to Svea's question a tiny bit. So I was astonished to see that most of you choose actually formats that seem to be to a certain extent just on the format level standardized. And I wonder, is it part of the medium itself, of the exhibitions that you can have? So why is it not more sculptural and goes back really to visualities that are more or less two-dimensional in space? A few of you actually have links behind it and have films, but it's still sticking to a classical screen format. So I'm really interested why and how. That's my first question. The second one actually is about an exhibition in itself that constellates art in a certain way in a room. is it happening or not? Is there a certain organization how you actually presented them, or is it because we only can see one side always, we don't have a room in which we are actually, but we can turn around? Is there a speaking to each other of the art objects you have?
So while
whoever wants to answer, sorry.
So while the exhibition team and I of course know who you are, so if no one talks, I will ask you directly, but I'm sure someone will talk. But Nick, since you're the master of the keyboard, can you actually please give us the overview? Because we can actually look at the whole space, right? So do you know how to do this? Or
I've done it really. I went into the exhibition outside of actually the presentation here. So I was parallel always looking what you're doing and how I walked through it by my own. But it was interesting for me to discover that it's not the easy way we normally do it. That's why I'm asking. So is there an organization, an idea how you actually presented it?
So while Nick is figuring out the keyboard, Casey, I know that you organized the artworks and that you thought a lot about it. So please share your ideas.
So we kind of originally had the layout where half the room, I kind of looked through all the projects. A lot of them had to do with the social distancing, and then we had ones that had to do with media. And then also some film ones. But as far as like why we all seem to do more 2D or like visual, like, photos and no sculptures or anything like that. I mean, I know you can do like 3D sculptures, but it might have had to do with this whole social distancing thing. I think when we think more of like 3D objects or something physical, we can't actually, we're used to these screens of our communicating with distance. And when I think 3D objects, I think more physical and being able to be there and see it and look around it. So that might be why we tended to do more social media and just 2D images.
Thank you. I like your answer. To briefly, just simply because you actually mirror what is happening in the society, right, with the social distancing. It's clearly defined. There's nothing amorphous anywhere in the space. And it's really fascinating to see how actually exactly this happens, what you described in some of the projects. So it's fantastic, actually.
And maybe I can briefly add, actually Brenda Lemboy found this platform and she went through different options and we ended up deciding on this one because it actually demands that you still think about an exhibition in a space, even though it's digital space, where the other option would have been to just, do a WordPress or something like that, which might have been better for the display of the work, especially the videos, but it doesn't give you the same challenges in terms of working with the space and actually arranging the pieces in a chronological, not chronological, but in a logical order. Now I lost my train of thought, but yeah, we just thought that it would be interesting to still be able to virtually walk through an actual space and try to work with that.
I don't think my project would have changed that much, but
now I also remember what I wanted to say because we went through different steps, and so we uploaded all the projects to a Google Drive, and this is where I viewed them. And I do have to admit, some of them didn't make a lot of sense when you just saw them as files on your screen. But then when they were actually installed on a wall, they really started to kind of present their message in a far more convincing way, because what you really needed were these constellations of images, the kind of like Will's project is a good example, where if you just see the single images, you don't see kind of the juxtaposition of the different hand gestures that he is going for, as well as you do when you actually see them installed on a wall. So I think that for me that was an interesting experience, how that actually changes your viewing experience.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tanja, for your question. I again apologize. I didn't see your hand raising there. Next, I think Anna, you said you had a question.
Yeah. I will have to think a bit as I go. First of all, I think this is fantastic. I enjoyed all of the projects. I think they're really, really great. And I also really like the format. I'm begeistert. I think it's fantastic. And actually, my question also relates to Will's project, because clearly a lot of them are about sort of losing touch with each other, even with reality and so forth and so on, other than the Animal Crossing, which is really interesting because I never thought about, online games in that way. I'm also not very familiar with them, so that might be a reason why. But what I really think the project is amazing because I never drew this kind of connection. And I guess my question is, usually we have this sort of dichotomy between, digital and haptic touch, whatever, and so I would be interested in how you got there and how you brought these two things together. And then also my question is whether you actually sort of parallelize them and bring them together, or whether you oppose them, or both.
So I think to answer your first question, sort of how I got there was just throughout the semester when I was completing, when I was doing these photographs, I would always subconsciously use my hands. And then from there, I'd always slowly develop this idea of how hands can be connected to both new and old media. And then from there, how they're both used in actually very similar ways between both old and new. So I just thought that was a very interesting concept that could be explored. So yeah, I definitely didn't come up with this on a whim. It was a very slowly developed idea. And yeah, and I think to answer your second question, so wait, could you explain your second question again?
Yes, if I find the words, I might have to be a bit more clear. So I feel like that mostly we have a feeling of disconnection and of losing touch, and sort of in a metaphorical way, losing touch. And you're taking that up and making it very literal. And you're kind of, that's my question, juxtaposing or parallelizing this sort of manual haptic touch with something that's happening digital, that we usually see as disconnected. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, okay, yeah, I see what you mean. I think the point of this project is to kind of do a little bit of both. I think there are both parallels to these. I think a lot of the things with the digital age that we're living in sort of has these conceptions of these, of all this older media. For example, the far left two sets of photos. Social media is sort of this, and just other digital media where we interact with people has the concept of interacting with people, but you're not actually there. So there is that disconnect, that juxtaposition to actually being there with a person. There's a very larger space than people realize. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions? And thank you, Anna, for yours. Do any of the students have questions for the other students? Because I'm sure Actually, that's a good thing. I'm going to ask a question because he's right there. I'm going to ask a question to Liam. So where exactly? I'm kind of curious because I'm familiar with all these sounds in Cincy. I mean, they sound very close by. Did you film what you filmed or grab the audio from what you got around the UC's campus? Because that sounds very a lot like what those sounds are. Or did you go elsewhere?
I know one thing that kind of gave that away was like the bell tower. That kind of
tower,
yeah. But actually, I went towards like the Great American Ballpark area and kind of just went around downtown, and coincidentally, there was another bell tower. So I kind of I kind of had the short blind film split into two parts. Like one was me walking around the streets during the day, and then one at night. The one at night, I actually was closer to campus. I had a friend that lives there, pretty close by, and I just went up to the deck and just recorded some sounds and see what I could find. So.
Yeah, because I live really close to campus, and so I heard that bell tower. I was like, "Yep, that's hear that every 15 minutes." Yeah. That's good.
I guess I have a question. Again.
Go ahead, Brenda.
Liam. So when you first came up with your project, I was wondering about how differently Cincinnati sounds to other cities. Because I was wondering, well, does Cincinnati really sound so different than any other cities? And I'd like to hear your take on that. Do you think that Cincinnati sounds different than some of the other places you've been to, or what would you define as like the sound of Cincinnati?
Well, I guess to compare with other cities that I've been to, my dad was born in China, but he was like most of his childhood, he was raised in New York. And once I came along, he would bring me and my sister to New York a lot to visit relatives and stuff. So I would get a good taste of what New York especially is like. And Cincinnati's definitely not like, I don't mean to, put Cincinnati in a bad light, but it's definitely not as vibrant, I guess, so to speak. But I do find Cincinnati quite interesting because it's more of like a hidden gem.
The Gem City of Dayton, just so you know. I'm just no, I was gonna say, like, I definitely, kind of to back up Lynn's point, I definitely think there has to be some kind of people that can kind of pick up on various distinctive things in each place. Like, I'm a big fan of ice hockey, and there's a small rabid group of fans, very small but rabid group of fans that like claim that every goal horn in the NHL sounds different, and I listen to them, and there's like maybe like 3 variants of them, but they all sound the same. I'm like,
no, they're all different. They're all different.
Okay,
trust me.
But they all sound the same to me. but that's kind of my point, point that I'm trying to get there. So I definitely feel like there has to be some sort of sounds that are kind of interesting to the space. Go Penguins. Like I could imagine like Cincinnati, there'd be like a lot of like trains and stuff like that. Because that's one thing that you definitely hear in Cincinnati that you don't hear a lot in a lot of other cities. Nowadays, at least.
Right.
Especially depending on where you're at too. I mean, if you're like right by your Union Terminal, you're hearing a lot of trains, and that's. Any other questions?
So I guess I have another question, and it's similar to the one that I already asked about how would you have done this maybe differently or not if we had done the exhibition in real space. And it again concerns the pandemic because if I think, for example, of Abby's project, but also of Helen's, then they are addressing the pandemic and in a way, the way we try to create community. But we also address something that was prevalent before already, and that COVID just in a way escalated. So yeah, and like, how do you see that? Like that your projects are about trying to be critical and address a certain sense of social connection, but also social disconnection that is apparent in our contemporary age, even beyond the current state of exception. And I guess that also goes in the direction of Michael's project, right? So what is your take on that? In what way did the pandemic kind of escalate certain trends that were already there before?
I guess what I'm getting from you is like talking about what was escalated through the pandemic going on. And like on mine, I mentioned that I took my project idea from lecture 4, I believe it was, The Face and the Faceless. And that originally the masks that they were talking about in that lecture, I remember there was an article about the women who wore the white veils and how the cameras were always trying to get pictures behind that. So that was something that was already there, but then I feel like the idea of the mask was escalated due to the pandemic. So like, had our exhibition not been online and had like the pandemic not had occurred, we would all have like really different projects. I think that really affected the way we thought about what we wanted to produce for the exhibition, because granted, my project could probably still make sense. Like, we hide emotions behind certain walls that we build, but had there been no pandemic, the mask wouldn't make a whole lot of sense because people wouldn't really wear masks on a normal basis. So I think that it escalated the idea of the mask in my case, but.
So Helen, maybe to ask you something very directly, is there anything that's uncomfortable about the cuteness of Animal Crossing?
Sorry, I had a hard time hearing you. Could you repeat
So
that?
is there anything that's uncomfortable about how cute Animal Crossing is, or anything that's uncanny about it, or is it really just soothing?
There is definitely something kind of, I guess there's this feeling of like control that comes with it. Like I feel like a lot of people see the game as a way to make their ideal world. And I think in a way that's kind of, when you think about it, there's something kind of creepy, like where it's like, oh, you get rid of people that you don't like in your village and you make it all perfect and you have it a certain way. And you don't, and I know like definitely there's things that's like people get anxious about like, oh, like how their island looks compared to other people's. And like I grew up with the game. I had it like on the GameCube and on the Wii. And like there was definitely kind of a creepy, isolated feeling to it back in the day. It's definitely a lot more social and it feels very open, but back in the day it felt very like almost, like I said, isolated. Like you're walled in, and it's kind of something kind of creepy about it. But yeah, definitely I think most people find it very soothing. I know I find it soothing, so.
And then maybe also direct question to Michael. Part of your analysis is to criticize that all of our experiences have been turned into images. And are we part of the problem by putting on this exhibition that is essentially a digital room full of images, trying to be critical about that very condition?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it's very abstruse thinking here. The theories are very hard to locate, and that's intentional because they specifically talk about the illusory state of modern technology, right? So we have some parallels here. The technology has always been this way. Reality has always been sort of dislocated, but it's different now, and we all know that. We all know what's going on, and I think my big point is, have you gotten a sense in the past, well, for some of us in the past 10 years, some of us in the past few years, where there is no longer a universal concept. We talked about the death of the utopian ideal, and that applies to all across a political spectrum and across all people. I think that's indicative of that, where it's this nebulous, this kind of peripheral moment is what I'm trying to drive home. Are we? I think we're reflecting that. I'm not sure if we're adding to it. I guess we are. This right now is a process of simulation, but I think the big difference is, did we go from a heuristic age to something more, you know, these solipsistic, I would say. You know, the search engine was a facility, and we definitely were on a plateau, and we've climbed a different mountain, so to speak, metaphorically. And I'm not sure if we can locate where we're at. So, and that feeds into the grand metaphor of the theories about the map and the territory. So there are many, many, many things you can locate here. So speaking of heuristic, I hope that the video is neither fully heuristic nor polemical, and that you can derive from it your meaning, which is really the point I'm driving home. You choose your reality increasingly now. So I don't know if that clarified anything, but.
No, it was very good. Unless any other has any other questions, I think that concludes our exhibition tour today. I will hand it back to Svea and Brenda if they have any final comments. Thank you all for coming.
Devin, thank you so much for being our host today. And Nick, also thank you so much for sharing. Maybe you can stop the screen sharing now so we at least get a last glance of everyone in the room before we say goodbye. So thank you all for coming. Thank you to all of the students who really put up great work. If you followed the chat, I think you got a lot of extremely positive feedback. I'm impressed by how you really, you know, stayed on track throughout the semester. We're really engaged with the class and the material, and managed to put this together under really difficult circumstances. So really, I would say another round of applause for everyone is in order. So. And yeah, for all of you who were with us here today, thank you so much for making the time at the very busy end of the semester. And do you know, follow the links that we shared throughout the presentation, especially the videos we all could only see very short parts of, and I think they're all really very much worth exploring in detail. And you can also walk around the exhibition and yeah, read some comments that everyone had on the ideas that went into the making of these works, and also just have a bit more time to explore them. Thank you very much, and have a really good rest of your day.